All right, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, favorite day of the week. Fridays are my favorite because tomorrow is a sleep-in day. Hopefully you guys can sleep in tomorrow as well. Fridays, I know you guys come in a little later. I don't get to come in later. I get to be here same time. In fact, even earlier, we do staff meetings on Fridays. So that is why you guys come in a little later on Fridays. A little tidbit of knowledge for you. Today's video is going to be about how to efficiently set up and cut a lot of pieces in a hurry, setting up for mass production. Now, some of you are asking, like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to, set up and mass produce a whole bunch of things? Well, in today's changing society, a lot of people are straying away from traditional type jobs. We got a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of people out there using skills, crafting things, selling things, building things. And that's why we have popular markets like our regular Christmas markets. We have Spruce Meadows markets. Online, we have things like Etsy, which is fantastic for people selling their wares. Even things like Facebook Marketplace are great. So if you want to take advantage of one of those markets and you want to start producing products to sell, to make income, here are going to be some tips to help you guys out if that product is something that you're going to mass produce and need to make lots of pieces of. Now, the things I'm going to talk about today are relating to woodworking, but this process, this thought process, does not have to be solely to do with woodworking. This could apply to anything. It isn't so much a woodworking thing, it's a state of mind. If you want to think about production, how to be efficient, maybe you guys can take some tips from today's video and figure out how to do that. So when we're doing this, we want to have the ability to create things in a timely fashion with minimal input. Input is effort on our part. We always need to put in some effort, but if we can create a system where a lot of variables are fixed and we don't have to think too much when we're doing things, we can up production speed, thus increasing profit. So if you build your first Kitchissippi chair and it takes you 15 hours to do it, cool. Don't use that as your benchmark though. That's your first one. You're always working faster on it the second time, right? Now, let's use a little kid, for example. My boy is climbing stairs now, crawling up the stairs, and he takes forever. And I'm sitting there in the night. I got the bottle behind him. I'm walking up the stairs. I'm making sure he doesn't fall, and it takes him a long time to get up there. But fast forward 1 month, he flies up those stairs now. He just crawls. So he learns how to do it. He gets more familiar with the process, applies what he's learned, and increases speed and productivity, which is good and not good because I got to chase him down sometimes. But when it comes to products like this, knowing how to save time in certain areas is going to increase profit margin in a business, which is what we want. That is a profitable business model. If we're investing 15 hours into every chair and selling them for $100, you're not making very much an hour at all, right? So, but if we can get this down to 4 hours and then you're selling it for $100, then your profit margin drastically larger. So that is what we're looking for. And these are some tips I'm going to help you guys with today. So I am going to be cutting out some seat slats for you guys. There's a dozen seat slats per Kitchissippi chair. I've got a picture of a chair right over here that I'm going to grab for you guys so we can kind of understand what I'm talking about. So, got the drawing of the chair, seat slats. These guys right here, part that your butt makes contact with. So there is a dozen of those. And those are part number N on our drawing. The template for that part is going to look like this. Seat slat N. Not a whole lot of info on here, but we are going to go over the info that is on this. So, important right here. Clearance hole, countersink top. So we need to have a top and a bottom to our piece, which is great. If we get a knot on one side, we don't like it, flip it over. That's your new top. So we just have to be aware of that when cutting. So if you mark your top with a T, perfect. Same is going to happen right down here. It says, what does that say? Location of part D. So this is going to sit on top of part D, and that's how we're going to fasten it through there. Screws go down through those holes into part D. We got a dimension right there. 1.5 inches wide by 19 inches long. So we are going to go through the steps in setting up the tools, various tools that are going to allow us to produce these products efficiently. So I do have some cut up already. I've got a bunch here from a previous class this morning's, but this doesn't matter. I'm going to take you guys through the process again and show you guys how to turn a 1x4 board into a bunch of these seat slats. Because according to our drawing here, when we talked about yesterday, the sippy chair, seat slats are cut out of a 1x4, and then I got a couple cut out of this 1x4 down here. So we're going to grab a 1x4 and we're going to start talking about that process. All right, 8 foot, 1x4, fairly clean, fairly straight, a little bit of a curve in it. Not too bad. You guys might be able to see that a bit. This one's fairly heavy, actually. It's a dense piece of wood. There is a staple in the end of it, but that staple will not affect or be involved in any of our cuts. So we're going to leave that in place for now. I will remove it a little bit later. Things like manufacturer's tags, pricing tags, just pop those off, throw them in the trash. We don't need those. They don't need to end up in our saw or anything like that. But we are going to take this board and we're going to rip this lengthwise. So ripping is a cut from end to end. Cross cut is across the grain. A rip is with the grain the long way. And what we're going to do, we're going to turn that into 2 strips, just like this, at 1.5 inches wide, because that is how wide seat slat N is. So the nice thing is I do have tools set up already from the previous video. So we're going to take you guys for a walk. We're going to take this board over to the table saw and take you guys over the table saw. We're going to cut this up and get you involved in the process. So there will be a couple camera movements here, trying to keep this as minimal as possible, but I want you guys to see everything, so you're coming with me for the journey. How's that look? That doesn't look too bad, actually. Not at all. So we're gonna work with that. We're talking about a few things here. Table saw. Great tool, kind of scary, really mess you up in a hurry if you don't know what you're doing. But my job is to teach you what you're doing. So hopefully we're going to keep all of our fingers on, keep ourselves safe. And we'll go over some safety, some PPE, some do's, some don'ts, and what this funny little thing right here is. So this is one of my favorite things that I've recently started using since I came to Bishop McNally. I was at St. Augustine. I did not have one of these. So I was using my hands and push boards to help secure a lot of the wood to the table. This is an extra hand. This is absolutely fantastic. Sometimes it seems like we don't have enough hands to do the work we want to do. Well, that's why we buy extra hands. In the welding world, extra hands are Bessie clamps. This is a mag board or a mag switch, and this is what we call a finger board. So all these little fingers here, they're plastic. They are breakable, they will break, and you can't cut them up in the saw. We're going to try not to do that because that's not something I want to have to replace. Mr. Lawrence would be upset with me. And it's just not good practice to run your tools through the saw. We buy these, they cost good money, and we want to make them last. So we're going to treat them nice. But this guy here, it tool switches on it. And what these switches are magnetic switches. It drops magnets in here. It raises them up or lowers them down. When they're in the down position, they make contact with this table. So on, nice and firm, and that holds our board in place. In fact, these are darn tough magnets. I mean, I can get it off the table, but it's definitely not easy. I mean, I'm not as tough as you guys, but you know, you guys probably do that easier than me. But these things are awesome. Extra hand holds our wood against this white part right here. This is a fence. This is what guides our cut and helps set our width when we are using the table saw. Now this is turned off, otherwise I wouldn't be having my hands over here. What we have is our fence. We got our board on top. We're gonna move that over. And you can see the fence a little more clearly. This you can position however you would like using this little lever here. This locks down with this in the up position. We can slide this to whatever width we want. Today's width, seat slat N, 1 1/2 inches. So I need to get a measuring device. I need to reset this. There is a device over here for measuring. I don't trust it. These get damaged, things change, and they just don't seem to ever be accurate. So I'm gonna use a tape measure. We're gonna measure off of the blade. Actually, I'm gonna use a square because I have one right next to the camera. So I've got a square here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure this is in the off position first, which it is. You guys can't see it, but I've got it in the off position. We're gonna take our tri-square, pop it up against the edge of the fence right there, and I'm gonna measure out 1 1/2 inches to the edge of the carbide tooth, the widest part of the blade. That is going to give me a perfect 1 1/2 inch cut. So it takes a second or two to get it there, but once it's there, it's there. And these should not move once we have them in place. So that's 1 1/2 inches. That's what we want. So that's cool. Next thing, what I want to do is set up my fingerboard. And I have to set this up at a 4-inch or 3.5 inch wide gap from here to here. Why? Because 1x4s aren't actually 1x4. They're 3/4 by 3.5. There is some reasoning for it. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'll look it up for you guys. But yeah, just because it says 1x4 doesn't mean that's actually what it is. So easiest way to do this, I take the board, hold it in my hand. I set it up against the fence. Push my fingerboard up against it. Make sure there's no gaps anywhere. I push it in just slightly to the board. Turn the magnet on. Then I move the back one. Make sure it's firm up against here. Turn the magnet on. So we are ready to use that. This allows my board to slide this way, nice and easy, keeping an extra hand free for me when I'm cutting this. So setting blade height, which I've already done, I only want to set this one valley or gullet above the wood height. So wood is 3/4. The gullet height is another, probably close to 3/4 again. So I want this open valley here on the blade. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a big valley between each tooth. I want that valley fully exposed above my wood, but not way above my wood, because firstly, we fall on that and we got this much extra blade sticking out and we don't need it. That's that much extra blade that could potentially enter our body or mess up one of our parts or pieces if the saw stop fails. Now, I never like to rely on the saw stop, and I pretend it's not even there, just because I don't like relying on safety devices to protect me. It's like driving recklessly and crazy because you know you've got airbags. It doesn't make sense. It's just not a smart practice. So I don't even pretend, well, I pretend that the saw stop isn't there. I never want to have to rely on it, but if I do need it, maybe it will help me when the time comes, just like an airbag. You never want to rely on something like that. So, a little tip for you new drivers out there. Safety and PPE with this. Sleeves up, rings off, glasses, got to be safety glasses, so we're going to do that. Watch is on nice and tight, so that's going to stay. I use that for my videos as well. Helps me with timing. Change these for safety glasses. All right, so with this table saw, we have to turn the dust collector on. So we're going to do that, but before I do that quickly, we're going to talk about push sticks. We need these. There isn't a whole lot of space between the fence and the blade. We don't want to put our fingers in there. Not a risk we need. So use a chunk of wood. You know, you run one of these through the saw, I don't care. We can make more of them. You run your fingers through the saw, yeah, everyone's going to care. That's not a good thing. So these, I got a whole box of them. I can make more instantly. It's not a big deal. Even if these get cut up, yeah, so what? At least it wasn't your fingers. So I'm going to turn on that dust collector. We're going to cut these boards. All right, so we're going to turn this on. It does take a moment to turn on and activate. It needs to calibrate the sensor, make sure that the saw stop is working before we turn it on. And when this is ready to go, it's going to have a green light on the bottom with no blinking red light. The blinking red light means, hey, I'm not ready yet. Once that light is green, we can pull out that lever. The saw will turn on just like this. So the saw is active. And take our board. So here, 2 push sticks. We got 1 cut, now we need another one. So 1.5 inches, nice clean edge. We're gonna set this one aside, cut the rest of our wood. So here we got to put the sauce or the fingerboard in a little closer because we did take 1.5 inches off of this plus our kerf width. So we're gonna set that there, there and there, slide it in. Like that. We don't want to pinch it in too hard. We want this wood to slide freely. So this is good. I'm gonna turn this on and we're gonna cut this last piece. So when I cut material, I like to make sure I maximize the products I can get out of that one board. And with this setup, using a 4-inch board is great because I've got my 2 pieces at 1.5 inch here. You guys can see these. Those are the ones I just cut. But my scrap, my leftovers, that wide, 1/4 inch. It's all that's left. So these can be used for certain things. If they're good shape, we use for edging, for trim. So I just set these aside. And if they're piling up and I decide I don't need them, we can just, pop them in half, break them, get rid of them, and they're gone. All right, so I'm gonna turn this around and we're gonna talk about the miter saw right here. There we are. All right, see if I can get some angle going. I don't like that. We're gonna change positions. All right, this one's a little better. So next step in the process, I want to cut these down to 19 inches. 19 inches was my overall length. So what I've done already is I've set up a stop block for you guys. Now I've talked to you guys about stop blocks before, but when setting up a stop block, one of the things you want to do is you want to have the body of the saw in the down position. So we'll move this down, and I lock it in that position. The reason for that being is I take a tape measure and I measure off the blade out 19 inches, and then I use a square to set my stop block. So that's why I have this square right beside the saw. So from the blade edge to here, 19 inches. And then what I've done is I've set a stop block right here and clamped it in place. I know this is 19 inches because I've measured it from the previous video. So we're gonna chop up some pieces. We just cut those pieces. Now we're gonna cut them to length, and that's gonna be pretty much the majority of the cuts we need for seat piece N. So let's get those cut, and then we'll talk about the next step after that. Now this one being a shorter piece, I'm not gonna hold it right here and cut. My finger's gonna be way too close to the blade. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move to the opposite side of the saw. Now I can activate the saw from this side, but I'm gonna use my left hand for cutting and my right hand for holding. Whereas when I was on the other side, I was cutting with my right hand, holding with my left. So we don't wanna do that arm crossing. Remember we talked about running that saw into your business? You want to keep these all attached. So I'm moving the opposite side of the saw. I'm going to make that cut right now. So one board will give you 5 pieces, which is awesome. And remember when I talked about using our pieces efficiently and not having much leftovers? That's what I got left over. That's it. No waste there. Just a tiny little piece. So that can go in the scrap bin, and we can move on over to the drill press. I've got another piece here I could cut. You guys have seen that process, so we're going for another walk. All right, you guys got, I would say a bird's eye view, but a pretty good view of what's going on here. Ugh, that's enough of that noisy thing. All right, folks, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm actually gonna move this, and we're gonna go through a bit of a process here. Show you guys how I set myself up for all this. I've got the drill press here. As we can see, I've got some stuff clamped to the table. We're gonna talk about that in just a moment. There, that's a little better. Now you can see it better. First thing what we need to do is, let's run a scenario here. Let's say you've cut 48 of these seat slats. 48 pieces like this, because you have 4 chairs you're making. It's 12 pieces per chair, which is great. So you got 48 pieces you got to cut. They're all cut. Now what's the next step? We got to drill some holes. But for every piece, you have 2 holes. So 48 by 2 is 96. Yeah, 96. I'm a welder. Math is my strong suit, but simple math is easy enough, and we should all be able to do that. If you guys pull out your calculators, we need to learn those multiplication tables. Pretty simple, but that's another thing, and that's not my deal. So we would potentially have 96 holes we need to drill. So what we would end up doing is we would have to measure our hole locations and all that stuff. So we're gonna do that together for this first piece. So we need to know, where is it? Show up, where that hole is on this piece. So we need a location. You can't just put the hole in the middle of anywhere. Isn't how the project works, and it isn't gonna give you a nice, good looking project at the end. So I've already measured this, but we're gonna kind of do it together. Right there, you guys can't see it. I already know the measurement, 3/4 of an inch. So from edge to center, 3/4 of an inch. And we're gonna go this way, down. That is almost half, but it's actually 3/8. So 3/8 of an inch is that measurement. So keeping those 2 in mind, we need to transfer that to this piece. Now we have to pay attention with this one. This is a one-shot deal because this is gonna be our template. This is gonna set up our drilling for everything else. So we gotta get that measurement on there, and it's gotta be perfect. So combination square, handy dandy combination square, awesome tool. It's already set up for 3/4 of an inch. So we're gonna turn this way. Take one of our nice pencils that we always keep sharp and put that line at 3/8 of an inch, not 3/4. The next line is gonna be at 3/4. We're gonna adjust that right to, there's the 3/4, and I go in one little bit to accommodate for our pencil line. Otherwise, we're gonna be over halfway, and that's not a good thing. So, body of this, nice and tight here, no gaps. That's not gonna be a square line, neither is that. So we got this right here, right where we want it. And this is where, remember I said we need extra hands earlier? This would be that time. Right there. So a line drawn, that intersects right there. Okay, that is our template piece. This is important. So we have this. I'm gonna show you guys a little tool that I've created to make life easy. Yeah, that's it. That is all it is. What this is a scrap chunk of plywood from one of the nightstand projects. I took that out of the scrap. I made sure this corner here was 90 degrees. That's important. I grabbed a couple chunks of scrap here. Both have straight edges. That's also important. And I made them 90 degrees. So we have a 90-degree corner here. Screwed those in using the countersink bits so I didn't split the material. As you can see, used just like it should, slightly below surface level. We talked about that yesterday. So we got this piece here, but how does it work? What does it do? What we're gonna do, take our piece here, right to that corner, right to that side, nice and tight. And then we're gonna set this on the drill press. When we set this on the drill press, we're gonna set our drill bit right to that center location of that hole. Once we have all that in place, we're gonna clamp this unit down to the table. And we're gonna clamp it nice and firm and tight, couple clamps, and it will not move. As long as we don't bump anything, that will set every single hole that we need to drill. No marking. You'll have to mark out one hole for your whole 96. Now you're gonna wanna check a few every now and then, because if you bump the table, you slam a piece in there, it may move. So you wanna check them at the midpoint, check the first couple, check number 20, check number 50, and then the last one maybe, just to make sure that you are still accurate. If you don't check and you bump it right off the start, you've made 95 pieces that are all wrong, and we don't want that. So we're gonna put this on the table. I'm gonna take you guys with me, trying to get this set up, and we'll clamp it down. All right, that gives you a pretty good top-down view of what's going to happen here. So we'll make sure that table's nice and clean, bit's nice and clean, everything shows up well. So this bit has a centering point on it. That's how you know it's a wood bit, a wood-only bit, actually. If it has this little center point on it, little pinpoint, don't want to use that on steel. It'll bend right over. So there is a difference between wood and steel drill bits. So we've got our jig that we made. One of the most helpful pieces around. We've got our first piece with that location marked out. We're gonna place this on here. So that's there. We're gonna drop this down till that center point hits right in the middle of our location. And I've got it right there, and that's where I like it. So I'm gonna hold this down. I'm not gonna crank it down because you're gonna bend and break the drill bit. I'm just gonna hold this here so it doesn't move. Then what I'm gonna do is take one of these clamps, I've already got it open. I'm gonna put it right here on the back side of the table. We're gonna reach in as far as we can, and we're gonna tighten this down. This is gonna stop this from moving on us. So I've got one clamp in, which is great. Double check it. It's where I want it to be. Perfect. So I'm going to do, put my second clamp on. I always put two. So one is okay. Two is extra security, especially if you're mass producing pieces. You don't want it to move. So I'll clamp it right on the end here. And this is going to be great. So got that set up, nice and sturdy, not going anywhere. And what we're gonna do is start cutting our pieces. So I've got this bit, I'm gonna cut my first hole, I'm gonna cut that location there to make sure that it's exactly where I want it. And it sure looks nice, so we're gonna cut that one, green for go. And I'm gonna pull down, pull down, pull down. Remember, we gotta watch that collar on the countersink. So we're gonna set that right there. So what we have there is that nice countersink. See that little edge on it? That is so that top of the screw, the head of the screw, sits just below flush, which is perfect. That's what we want. So what we can do now is flip it over, do the other one. Or not flip it over, flip it end for end, because that's how we do this. Now, there is one little downside to this. When we are doing this, the sawdust that we cut from the drill holes collects in this corner. So we always have to blow it out. That buildup can create a space that might hold this off of the back a little bit. It might be at a bit of an angle. So this is kind of exaggerated. But if we can see a gap here, like this one, and a gap here, then we know we're obviously not where we want to be drilling. So we want to make sure it's clean, can fit in there nice and tight, and then we drill our hole. So that's one piece. I'm not going to show you guys anymore because you guys don't need to see anymore. You guys know what you're doing. I'm going to move this back to its original location. And we'll wrap up here for today. So I've got those tools set up that you guys have seen. It does take a little bit to initially set them up. Took me a few minutes to make that jig, but it's one of those things that you invest a bit of time at the start. It's going to save you a whole bunch of time at the end. That's how I kind of like to operate. I have a stack here of probably 25 pieces that only took me a few minutes to drill, maybe 10 at best. And I can drill faster than that even, but I was just taking my time. We want, we can't get too focused on speed because we still have to incorporate safety. So finding that balance between fast and safe is that's where I like to work. And if we get in a panic, we start working too fast, not thinking, something happens that causes us an injury, we do something that we normally wouldn't do, but we're just so wrapped up in production that we end up putting safety by the wayside, that's when accidents happen. So you have to run that balance. With this, I kind of outlined the whole process and what I do to make things a little quicker when working production style. I could have cut, 50 pieces very quickly. I can drill a whole bunch real quickly. It's not a big deal. Table saw is set up, miter saw is set up, drill press is set up. I haven't set up the router. We will router all these pieces. I'm going to do that at a later date though. I'm going to dedicate an entire lesson to that because that is a tool that things can go wrong in a hurry with if you don't know what you're doing. So hopefully you guys have a bit of an idea about streamlining processes. And what I have done today to kind of get you in that mindset about how to make processes more efficient is I've turned today's quiz into a little assignment. And what I would like from you guys is to think of an example of any process. Could be anything from baking cookies to building a chair to working on a car to planting a garden. It really doesn't matter to me what scenario you use or a scenario that you guys can create. The thing is, I would like you guys to outline a way to streamline that procedure, to make it more efficient, to save time somewhere without sacrificing quality or safety. That's the biggest one. There were a few things I could have done even in this video to make things a little faster. Talking about the miter saw over there when we were working on it, I could have actually what's called gang cut a few things. That is when you stack multiple boards on top of each other and then cut them at the same time. That is completely doable. But what I would have needed to have done is set up a taller stop block because I want all my pieces to touch that stop block. And if I got 3 stacked up and they slide, slide like that a bit, so the ends aren't even, and then I make a cut, I've got 3 different length boards, and these ones are going to be different length, and nothing is going to work out how I want. So I just went with the basics today for you guys. Just cut 1 board at a time. If I was looking to be a little quicker though, I would stack cut or gang cut pieces of material like this. So that's something for you guys to think about. The assignment is open. It is in your D2L. It's just the one process, one procedure. Give me a few sentences on that, whatever it takes. Don't just give me like 5 words. That doesn't really show much of a thought process in this. And I want to see your guys' thought process when it comes to this. So once again, it does not have to be a construction related process. It could be with any process, even something you do around the house. Think of, say, if you wash dishes. How can I make this process easier, faster, better, right? It's all about improvement. And that is one of the big things that keeps small businesses successful is streamlining processes, keeping overhead costs down, managing time efficiently. So creating a process like this or streamlining a process is only going to benefit you. And if you learn this skill as a young teenager and you apply it throughout the rest of your life, things are going to go a little easier for you. And it's also cool when you can pass these tips on to others. So if you find some that really work, feel free to share them with others. Share them with me. If I see something I really like in the submissions that come in, I'm going to share it with you guys. It's just going to be beneficial to everybody. So I'm going to let you guys go for today. We're just about at lunch. I want you guys to, oh yeah, just about at lunch. I want you guys to have a great day. Have a great weekend. Drop your names in the chat, please. I'm going to shut down the video and the mic, but I will be here for the next 15 minutes to help you guys out if you need it. So have a great weekend. Stay warm, stay dry, stay healthy, and I'll catch you guys Monday.